US President Joe Biden has issued an executive order to ban American investment in some areas of China's high-tech sector. China's criticized the planned restrictions.
The new rules are targeted at China's artificial intelligence, quantum computing and semiconductor industries. The United States government has been pondering this move for some months and taken this action despite concerns from its chip-making companies. President Biden says the move is for national security reasons.
China has described the US move as blatant economic coercion and called it tech bullying. It says the rules violate the principles of market economy, undermine international economic order and global supply chains. Well, Max Wolff is a professor at New School University in New York and the founder of company analytics firm Systematic Ventures. Max, thanks very much indeed for joining us. First of all, strong words from Beijing. China's clearly not happy with this, but it's not unexpected, is it? It targets, at this stage, private equity and venture capital. I'm guessing larger pension funds, for example, won't be affected. But nonetheless, it is a radical change in policy. Is Beijing right to take offense?
Yeah, look, this is clearly against the precepts and projects and processes of free trade here. And I think maybe less effective than it is sort of just a deterioration in the relationship and consistent with this sort of one step forward, two steps back. I think, Yellen had a pretty good trip, and this is the kind of reminder that that may have been a good trip, but that there's still a lot of headwinds ahead of us. I don't know how much investment was happening in those areas from the U.S. lately anyway, but clearly it's the kind of more of the punitive sanctions regime that is always unpopular with anyone who is on the receiving end of it.
I mean, the Trump administration introduced some curbs back in the previous White House. This is another step away from open trade, as you say. Are these all the realities of decoupling?
I think so. I think there's also a sense that some of these businesses, quantum computing, chips, some of the AI is going to be the sort of key to having the dominant economy 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. And there's definitely a desire on the part of some groups in the U.S. to make sure that they can remain dominant. And I think everyone thinks, the Chinese, the Americans, the global community, that China is the closest to really unsettling or overthrowing that dominance. But it is a return to the more kind of 19th century, I'll stay on top by preventing you from climbing the ladder, which is, I think, profoundly unfortunate for the global economy.
I mean, it is the two major economies. We can see that quite clearly. But is there also a leadership move in this? We know the UK and the European Union are also rethinking their investment parameters. Might they follow suit?
They might. I mean, I think you see Australia already announcing a review of some of these issues. I think it's more dicey in some jurisdictions than others. And also, if the United States and China have trouble getting along with each other, it also creates opportunities for other parties that can relate to both. Because the problems with sanctions are myriad, but often they're pretty successfully evaded too. And so some countries make a living in an art form of evading sanctions to allow parties that want to trade to do so, whether or not their governments want to be seen to allow that trade.
I mean, you mentioned U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen only in Beijing in July trying to smooth relations. Is this is it a balancing act that's constantly going to plague the two economies, pushing forwards and then changing deals halfway down the line?
Looks that way. I mean, both these governments are trying to make policy for domestic popularity and for macroeconomic essentials, right? And those are not always pointed in the same direction. And so you sometimes get, hopefully, a productive trip a la Yellen with an unproductive announcement. The question is, how much of this announcement really changes things? It's not that clear. So it could just be saber rattling.
Indeed. Max Wolff, thanks very much indeed for talking to us tonight.